Dicho esto, vamos a presentar a nuestros invitados. El día de hoy nos acompañan Jorge Valdés, director de la oficina de Proyectum México. Jorge, bienvenido.
Muchas gracias, Omar.
Tenemos también a un super invitado, nos acompaña Jeff Félix, presidente de Cernexus. Jeff, como presidente de Cernexus, es responsable de promover la misión de la empresa de cerrar la brecha de habilidades tecnológicas emergentes. Con 25 años de experiencia en la industria de la capacitación y la certificación, sirviendo en roles de dirección general y liderazgo en la práctica, Jeff combina su pasión por el desempeño profesional con la tecnología para generar cambios dentro de las organizaciones globales y mejorar las oportunidades para las personas en la tecnología emergente.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Ya,
Bueno,
listo.
pues esta mañana tenemos, como bien decía Omar, un invitado de lujo para platicar en una entrevista que tenemos acerca de lo que representan en estos días el estar familiarizado con las tecnologías emergentes. Durante la sesión va a haber traducción simultánea. Abajo en su barra de herramientas de Zoom van a encontrar un mundo que dice interpretación o translation, dependiendo de la versión que tengan. Ahí ustedes pueden seleccionar el canal de inglés si quieren escuchar a Jeff directamente, si no tienen problemas con la interpretación en inglés. Y si no, si requieren de la interpretación, Héctor Villarreal nos va a estar ayudando con la traducción simultánea. Entonces, tienen que seleccionar el canal en español para que escuchen su voz de lo que está traduciendo en relación con lo que comenta Jeff. Vale, bueno, pues sin más preámbulos, Jeff, thank you very much. It's a very humbling and honor experience to speak with you today. And we have been preparing some questions for you to enlighten us about the emerging technologies world and how can we be prepared for this new adventure. So first of all, I would like to start with what is the fourth industrial revolution and what industries is this movement impacting? ¿Qué es la cuarta revolución industrial y qué sectores está impactando?
Great. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here, and I appreciate the Proyectum team making the time and everyone else making the time out of your day. I realize that the most valuable asset you have is your time, so appreciate it, you spending it with us today. I also want to apologize. My Spanish is very rudimentary, so that's why we're doing this in English today. To answer, I'm going to display my screen to help with visual aids in my response. So we're going to start in regards to the fourth industrial revolution. So what is it and the impact it's having? So the fourth industrial revolution, if you remember from your history books, the first revolution was the steam engine. The second was electricity combined with mass assembly. The third was the advent of the computer. And now we're in the fourth industrial revolution, where we're starting to fuse our physical and digital worlds. So when you think about this, think about your home. Think about, you might have a wearable device. You may have an Apple Watch. You have maybe a smartphone. Maybe you have sensors in your home. I built a new home a couple years ago, and we have internet sensors on our thermostats. Our television is connected to our Wi-Fi. So we see this in our consumer lives, but also in commercial settings. So we're starting to see now where we're starting to use technologies such as the Internet of Things or IoT to connect our manufacturing equipment, our transportation vehicles, energy, and so forth, in a variety of industries where we're connecting those pieces of equipment or vehicles or really anything to the internet and we're starting to then process data that we're using for analysis and business intelligence. So when you think about the fourth industrial revolution, it really is the automation of our traditional infrastructure, but it also is impacting our consumer lives as well, where we now are connecting many things, not just computers, to the internet.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just to let you know that we are not seeing your screen.
You're not seeing? Let me stop the share and reshare. See if this will. Are you seeing it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. Okay, I apologize for that.
I think it was me.
Okay.
Okay. The next question. Thank you, Jeff, for this. This is very fascinating. The way the world is fast changing with all these technology additions and adaptation, and I think the possibilities are infinite. But what would you define as emerging technologies? ¿Cómo definirías las tecnologías emergentes? ¿Qué son para ti?
So emerging technology is defined as technology who've yet to reach their full potential. So let's take artificial intelligence, for example. Almost every one of us have used artificial intelligence today. If you're using a smartphone and you were typing a text and it auto-completed, that's artificial intelligence. If you engaged with a home assistant or your phone and you spoke to it and it was able to find information for you, that's artificial intelligence. If you performed a search on Google or Bing or any other search engine, that's artificial intelligence. If you actually bought something on a large email or e-commerce site, they use, again, artificial intelligence. The same if you're using a streaming service, they use recommendation engines to recommend other films or television series to you, again, using artificial intelligence. So you would say, how is artificial intelligence then not just a standard technology? Why is it considered an emerging technology? And the reason for it is that artificial intelligence has so much opportunity for growth. It hasn't reached its full potential. It's the same as with the Internet of Things, the technology we just described that's powering the fourth industrial revolution. IoT is, again, being used more widely. Again, in our consumer lives, think about your Fitbit or your Apple Watch or any other wearable. But again, it's not being used as widely as it will be. So again, why it's an emerging technology. And we'll see this over and over again when we talk about 3D printing, cloud computing. I just read today that cloud computing has now outpaced other types of storage for data, but still that has not reached its full potential. So these emerging technologies are defined as that because they've yet to reach their full potential. But what we do need to recognize is that these emerging technologies are having significant impact on industry, our personal lives, and the skills we need to maintain our employment as well.
Thank you, Jeff. As I understand, nobody is safe. I mean, every one of us, sooner or later, will be in this world of emerging technologies.
That's true, Jordan.
Okay. Now, particularly, there have been a few years ago that started some trend in the business that is known as digital transformation. And I am wondering how do the emerging technologies are influencing this movement in the business environment?
Well, let's first define digital transformation, and then we'll see how it's impacting our business environments and, again, our professions. So digital transformation is either we're replacing non-digital technologies and typically manual processes with technology that allows us to digitize those processes, or we're replacing older digital technology with newer digital technology that includes the ability to, again, automate many of these processes. So a good example of that is, in the past, and even in the present, we've had a lot of people that have done data processing. Now what we're doing is we're moving away from data processing because we're able to automate more of that. And we're now doing data analysis. So what does that provide to an organization that's gone through a digital transformation? It allows them not only to capture and store data, but now they're also to use that data for analysis and provide business intelligence to their business. And it's the same, we see this over and over across industries and across divisions in corporations. Think about supply chain management, our ability to better manage raw materials into transformation into components, into assembly, into products, then out to distribution warehouses, and then to either retailers or to consumers. All of those processes now are being digitally transformed. Less so now is someone going around with a clipboard and piece of paper to track that. That's all being facilitated by technology, and actually some of the steps are being processed by technologies and automated. So I was speaking with someone earlier today, and they talked about how major retailers, and now with transportation on trucks, that those routes are being auto-planned for drivers. They get into their truck and all of their drop-offs and destinations are predetermined for them, again, using automation software. So again, this digital transformation is going to take us from non-digital technologies, not only to digital technologies, but technologies that can automate our business processes.
Okay, this is a huge revolution for all of us because it seems like the world will be transformed as we know it, and we have to learn new skills and prepare ourselves to be a complement of these technologies in the workspace.
That's true, George. And and one thing I do want to make sure we all understand is technology used to be the concern of the IT team, right? If we talked about technology, we talked really about our IT teams. But now technology is being used throughout the workplace, and all of us have to have some level of understanding of these technologies. It's not good enough anymore to just say, hey, IT will take care of it, because most likely the person inside the business unit actually has the knowledge, the domain knowledge, to help drive the best use of that technology. So all of us, whether you're a product manager, project manager, a business leader or stakeholder, we all need to start to understand these technologies and how they're going to help transform our businesses.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you for mentioning this, because there are a management movement in parallel with this. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just management, but IT management movement, which is known as citizen developer, and that it tries to put things in order, because now with the major involvement of business in technology solutions, in building technology solutions, it could be some kind of anarchy. So it has to be governed, and I think that the movement like citizen developer is aimed to try to put the house in order.
Yeah, George, you're right. It is, and we do need to think differently about our use of technology, and that the fact that we're all again participating as whether again citizens in our personal lives, but as you also said, citizens in our business lives, and we have to participate in the process. We can't rely on a single organization like the IT department to do this for us any longer. We're all going to participate, not only participate, but lead in many cases as well, this transformation.
Yeah. Okay, there are some challenges regarding the emerging technologies. What about the cybersecurity, artificial intelligence and data ethics? Hay algunos desafíos alrededor de las tecnologías emergentes. ¿Qué nos cuentas de la ciberseguridad, de la inteligencia artificial y de la ética en el manejo de los datos?
Yeah, so you know, when we talk about you know, some of these concerns, we have to understand the growth of these technologies and the impact they're having. So I'm showing a chart here, and it shows, you know, a bar chart, and shows the growth in global spending on technology. And you can see that orange block of part of the bar is where the most of the growth is happening. And so this is really exciting because we're using more technology to, again, digitally transform, to extend our businesses through technologies like IoT, et cetera. But again, what we have to be aware of is that we have to do this responsibly, and we want our companies to be trustworthy with our partners and customers. So with this, we need to ensure that we keep our data secure, that we ensure that we meet any privacy regulations.
Excuse me, Jeff, let me. Okay.
Okay. That we meet any privacy regulations, and that we're using these technologies and data ethically. So, you know, one of the challenges we have right now with artificial intelligence is the technology. For the first time, we're able to have technology make decisions without human intervention. So you think about that, an algorithm, which we've trained on data, doesn't have any moral compass. It doesn't understand ethical norms. It's going to make the best decision it can based on the data that's presented to it. So we need to make sure that we're driving these technologies to be able to make ethical and moral decisions. From a security standpoint, we need everyone to participate. It's not, again, enough to rely on our IT and security teams. They provide security, much like a police force will provide security for a town. But it's up to each one of us to participate and actually ensure our own safety, right? Like we do in our own towns and villages. You know, we rely on the police force again for security, but our own safety is our own responsibility. It's the same in our cyber worlds. We need to ensure that we all have an understanding of what social engineering is. What is not only a phishing attack through email, but what's a spear phishing attack, a whaling attack? What is smishing, right, through text, or vishing through voice? What are physical types of social engineering as well? So what we have to do is we're all going to, again, participate. We cannot rely on just one part of the organization. We need to ensure our safety. We need to ensure the ethical use of these technologies. And we also need to think about the impact it's going to have, not only positive, but potentially the negative impacts on employment, and how we address that as well.
Interesting, Jeff. I can't avoid to think that with this proliferation of technology and the incorporation of business people into the, let's say, emerging technology solutions world, all the companies should be prepared about cyber security and data ethics. That's a key point for being able to be compliance with some regulations, and also with the responsibility that we have as organizations with our customers.
That's correct, George. So a great example is we have a lot of partners that we work with through CertNexus, where the entire company, like we do it in our company, everyone each year goes through our cyber awareness training. They have to pass an associated assessments as part of our compliance programs. We do that for just good internal governance, but we also do it because our cybersecurity insurance provider requires us to do it. So if we want to file a cybersecurity insurance claim, they'll only process it if we've taken this step. And it's also, as you said, George, as far as just good practices in the fact that we want to keep the data that our customers entrust us with safe, and we want to make sure we're using it ethically as well. So those are just core things that we need to do to our business that we probably weren't thinking about 3 to 5 years ago, but today it's a must for us to consider.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, that's very, very important. And talking about data, right now the data are the king in the business world. I mean, they are the data management and governance have been arising as a key activity in the organizations. So how come this happened? And you mentioned in your last, previously, that you have to train the data or a model that uses data. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes.
¿Cómo es que en el mundo de negocios los datos han cobrado tal relevancia? Han venido cobrando mucha relevancia y hoy el tener una buena administración, una buena gestión de los datos es clave para las organizaciones. ¿Podrías elaborar acerca de qué es eso de entrenar los datos o entrenar un modelo?
Yeah, so as George said, we are now in the data and AI economy, or often referred to as the data economy as well. You think back 10, 15 years ago, the most valuable companies in the world were energy companies or multinational manufacturers. And although they are, some of them are still some of the most valuable companies in the world, the most valuable companies today are being built on data. Let's take Google as an example. Google is a data company. Google, they have an annual revenues about $300 billion in annual revenues, and about 80% of that comes from their Google ads. And Google ads, it's all built on data. It's built on our search data. It's built on data that Google searches and indexes that we search against. All of that is data driven. Even companies like, for example, Apple. You think of Apple being a device company, right? A phone, a watch, a laptop. But Apple is transforming itself. Think about the services it provides that are all data driven, right? Whether you're listening to Apple Music, you have Apple Health on your watch, right? They are actually now, Apple with the watch and Apple Health, they're one of the largest aggregators of health data in the world now. And that's just over the last few years. And think about how valuable that data becomes, right? Even if they're not using your individual data, the metadata, the aggregate data, it becomes very valuable. So, and not only in those tech companies, but think about a bank, think about a insurance company, think about in healthcare, think any industry where we amass data, it's becoming valuable, right? Whether we use it in healthcare for diagnostic purposes, we're using it in finance to better our investments, whether we're using it in manufacturing to reduce our increased quality and reduce errors, right? There's so many ways then that we're using data that we weren't 5 or 10 years ago. And it's becoming more and more important to us. And again, as we automate more, that data is facilitating the automation. So as George was referring to, what we do is when we start to amass data, we are now starting to look at, hey, not only how do we use that and analyze it, but how do we start to use that to train algorithms? So you think about our artificial intelligence is comprised of algorithms, and those algorithms are trained using data. And so now data becomes very important in the advancement of artificial intelligence. Without data, there's no artificial intelligence. It's that simple. So if we're going to invest and make advances in artificial intelligence, we have to have not only more data, but better data. It has to better represent the business problems we're trying to solve. It has to be complete. It has to be clean. And we have to make sure our algorithms are, again, making good decisions with that data. But ultimately, what's happened is where before data was just something we stored, data now has value, whether we use it for artificial intelligence, whether we use it for analysis, whether we actually monetize it, like Google does, or Facebook or other social media platforms, or we use it for new products, right? Tesla, again, think about near autonomous vehicles, or in someday when we have autonomous vehicles, all facilitated by data.
Very interesting, and I think my perception is that many companies have not been aware of that. I mean, they have data and they don't value the data they have, and they perhaps do some analysis, but they don't care about the quality of the data and the cleanness of the data. So that's I mean, that should be a must in the current business environment that we are facing.
It is, and what it does, it allows us to create better relationships with our partners and customers. If I was a customer for Proyectum could see how I engage with your website, how I engage with you in social media. Do I purchase your training solutions? If so, which ones? If I do, which ones are likely should be recommended to me as a next step? All of that can be told to you by data. And so now what we're doing is we're bringing that data together through data engineering, data science, and data analysis. Again, some of that facilitated by artificial intelligence. And we're starting to paint a picture of who our customers are and how we can better engage with them and enrich that relationship.
Yeah. Okay, Jeff, we are almost finished. I have a couple more questions. So we have been talking about data science, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data ethics, cybersecurity. Who in the organization have to be familiar with this emerging technology at the knowledge level, at least? I mean, not expert, not being able to perhaps create a script of cybersecurity or something like that, but to understand the basics, to be able to have this intelligent conversation with his peers. Jeff, hemos estado hablando de ciberseguridad, de data science, de inteligencia artificial, del Internet de las cosas, de ética de datos. ¿Quién en la organización debería de tener al menos un nivel de conocimiento de estos elementos? Y me refiero a que no deberían de poder crear scripts o algo, pero sí por lo menos tener una conversación inteligente que les permita entender estos conceptos.
Yeah. So what's interesting, and I alluded to this earlier, is that we all need to have some level of knowledge of these technologies. So again, what we'll see is for our IT professionals, our data professionals, our cybersecurity professionals, etc., they're going to not only need to have knowledge, but they're going to need to have certain skills, right? So if I'm a machine learning engineer, I need to be able to not only select an algorithm, but to train it and to operationalize it. So that's a different level of skill set that is going to be required for machine learning engineer. But if I'm a business leader, a product or project manager, someone in the business, marketing, sales, operations, legal, wherever you may sit in the organization, I'm going to need to have at least a foundational knowledge of these technologies. So I'm going to need to understand terminology. So how do we define artificial intelligence, right? The ability for machines to complete human tasks, right? There's types of artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning. I'm going to need to understand what's the difference between the two, because there are better uses for those types based on the problems I'm trying to solve, the data available to me, and the skill set of my organization. I'm then going to need to understand conceptually how these technologies are applied. So how do I use deep learning, which is, again, a type of artificial intelligence, for natural language processing, for computer vision? How do I use machine learning in my phishing spam filters? How do I use machine learning to help detect credit card fraud? Right, so I need to conceptually understand how these are used, these technologies are used in search engines and robotics, et cetera. And then I need to understand their business application. How can it be applied for my business use? So I talked about the fraudulent activity. We use it for vulnerability assessment in cybersecurity. There's a multitude of ways that we use this, again, across agriculture and manufacturing and high-tech industry and finance, manufacturing, and more. But we need to understand this, right? We can't deploy these technologies without understanding what they are. Again, it's not just our foundational technologies that IT have deployed in the past that allow us to connect to one another, right? Providing networking infrastructure. These are technologies that are transforming our business. These are the technologies that are automating processes. These are the technologies that are providing us more intelligence from our data. These are the technologies that are connecting us to things so we know more about those things and can increase our, whether it's our uptime or our delivery rates, or again, reduce timelines. Again, so when you think about the organization, everyone across the organization needs to have at least this foundational knowledge. Really, there's not one part of the organization that shouldn't have it. And then we'll drive to the deeper skills for those technologists who are developing and deploying the technologies.
Okay, so we have to, I mean, at least as participants in building solutions that uses some of all of these technologies, we need to be aware of what are the jargon, what are the dynamics of a project which involves this kind of technologies, and what are the challenges. I think the business analysts, project managers, business owners, product owners, school masters, development teams, I mean, all the ecosystem of a solution deliveries, right?
That's correct. I look at it this way, is that if you're unable to use a computer or a mobile device today, what does that do for your employability? Next will be in the next 3 to 5 years, if you don't understand these technologies, then it's going to be hard to lead projects, to participate in projects, to be a leader in an organization determining whether these technologies are good for your company. Without this knowledge, you will be like today if you weren't able to use a computer.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Jeff. A nuestros amigos les pido por favor que si tienen preguntas para Jeff o para mí o para Omar o para Héctor, que está ahí en las bambalinas en la traducción, si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor pónganla en donde dice preguntas y respuestas o questions and answers, porque ya casi llegamos al punto en donde podemos abrir el espacio para que ustedes directamente pregunten alguna duda o preocupación que tengan alrededor de este tema. Jeff, the last question, and perhaps not everybody in this webinar knows that we recently passed all the process to be authorized training partners of Nexus in Projectum. So we are very happy to having passing this process, and we are about to start offering the knowledge level of emerging technologies class, so for all our friends in Latin America be able to cope with the change. But I wonder if you are kindly to share your roadmap of the emerging technologies at Cernexus. What can we, our public or our friends expect from us in the near future? Jeff, ¿cuál es el mapa que tienes de tecnologías emergentes? ¿Qué puede esperar nuestro público de la oferta que en conjunto con Cernexus vamos a traer a Latinoamérica en los próximos meses?
Thank you. So first, I do want to recognize that Proyectum is our premier partner now in Latin America and over 10 countries. So our largest partner from a reach perspective within Central and South America, and I'm soon other places in the world as well. And so I want to thank Proyectum and George and team for your partnership. As you said, we at CertNexus, we are a global certification company. So we help to develop knowledge and skills and then assess that and provide credentials that are recognized across the industry in these 5 technology disciplines at this time, being cybersecurity, the Internet of Things or IoT, data science, artificial intelligence, and data ethics. As George mentioned, we start with our think layer. Our think layer is that knowledge, foundational knowledge layer. This is where you learn about the technologies, again, terminology, conceptually how they work, and their business application. Our build and secure layers are for those technical professionals, again, who have to design, develop, and deploy technologies. But again, as we've reiterated, it's really this understanding that we all need to start to understand these technologies better, whether it's ensuring the safety of our organization from a cyber perspective, whether it's our data, our infrastructure, whether it's we're going to utilize data in more sophisticated ways. And we need to understand the different types of data, what's structured data versus unstructured data. How is data stored? How is it accessed? And the same thing with artificial intelligence. We started to talk about machine learning and deep learning, but how is reinforcement learning used in robotics? How is supervised learning used in healthcare diagnostics? How do we use deep learning in natural language processing like we see with our phones, where we can speak and it understands language? These are all ways that we need to understand it. And then how do we use data ethically, right? As an organization, again, it's becoming more important. So again, with Proyectum, these programs are not, and the associated credentials are now available. Proyectum is also making them available in Spanish. So the content's in Spanish, the delivery is in Spanish as well. And we're really excited because we know that there's intensive investment across all of the Americas in technology, and really excited to see more companies and corporations and individuals be able to lead and participate in these digital transformation projects.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. We will now pass to the questions and answers for public, and I will translate the questions, and let's see how did this section take us. There are a lot of questions, so hopefully we are able to cover everything. At the end, al final de la sesión, Omar nos va a platicar un poquito de los planes que tenemos para el lanzamiento de estos programas. Entonces, let's start. Gonzalo Ponce says, it seems that everything is around automatization. What does this mean from the project management perspective? Do we be focused in agile methodologies?
It is. It's interesting because we're going to see automation impact project management in several ways. One is in this tools you start to utilize. We're going to start to see more artificial intelligence built into those tools or systems or platforms. We're also going to start to see in the fact that we're going to be managing automation projects. And we're going to start to use automation to better understand what's possible in projects. So, for example, in manufacturing now, we're using digital twin technologies where we can start to use what-if analysis. So as opposed to having going on a manufacturing floor and try to actually design a system to do something, we can do that digitally. Well, think about that, the same, doing that in any environment now. And then again, as you said, the agility, right, through agile methodologies to be able to do that. So I think agile pairs very well with automation, but we're going to have to look to whether that automation is in alignment always with our agile methodologies. So it's going to be interesting, but again, I think it's going to better facilitate some of our agile methodologies today.
Okay. Jeff, Oscar Olivares is asking, well, he says it is an excellent webinar. And he asked if those trained data have relationship with neural network technology.
It does. So for those who aren't familiar, artificial neural networks are utilized typically when you in multiple layers, we call them deep learning. And deep learning trains on data. So the most complex artificial neural networks literally have many billions of parameters and literally trillions of points of data. And so it's using that to train these very advanced deep learning algorithms. And so these deep learning algorithms can now do things like create art. It can write poetry. It can actually, manipulate robots. And robots can actually interact in some ways like human-like ways. All of this is built on data that it then trains these deep learning neural networks. We also use data in machine learning, but as well. So data is very important in neural networks.
Thank you, Jeff. Guillermo Cruz. He says, hi, Jeff, nowadays we are in the fourth revolution. When do you think, or with what kind of technologies we have to deal in fifth revolution?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the fifth revolution, and this is my opinion, is that I think artificial intelligence is really going to be transformative. What we need to understand about our artificial intelligence now is that we have what we call artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI, meaning that artificial intelligence today can typically do one task really well. So a deep learning neural network that's trained on on billions of parameters can create art, but it can't write a sentence. The one that can write a sentence can't actually determine anything about healthcare diagnostics. So they're really good at doing things very narrowly. As we move towards artificial general intelligence, or AGI, where machines have near equivalent or equivalent human capabilities, we're going to see artificial intelligence be able to do multiple tasks. There's actually an AI that can do it now. It can do hundreds of tasks, and it's teaching itself to do tasks. So I think that the fifth revolution is really going to be fueled by artificial intelligence, and we're going to see machines being able to do many things that we're able to do today, and again, is going to have to shift how we engage with technology in the world.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Julio de León nos pregunta, Jeff, to what level deep of knowledge would you recommend that middle management know about this revolution?
Middle management needs to really go those three foundational things that we cover in our think level: the terminology. Excuse me.
At least at that level.
At least, yeah, at least. You're going to need at middle management again. You're going to need to understand the terminology, how are these technologies applied, conceptually how the technologies work. So we just talked about that, right? We just talked about a artificial neural network. You need to know an artificial neural network. You need to know the types of artificial neural networks. So if someone talks about a feed forward or a recurrent neural network, you need to understand those, because that means different things in how the technology is going to work. So the terminology, conceptually how they work, and then how it's applied for business use. AI is not always the right tool, right? There may be other technologies that are better suited for a specific need. You need to know that as a middle manager. Without that knowledge, you, again, may be asked to employ a technology that's not going to be helpful to your business.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Juan Citavi. No, perdón. Alguien dice, what would you recommend to the companies that doesn't have already a transformational digital plan? I mean, what would you say are the first steps to get into this transformation?
You know, again, technology is a tool. So I think the first thing that you have to understand is, what is the expected business outcome, right? How are you going to drive value for your business? Then understanding what you're going to drive the value is, what is the insights or information that will help you drive the value, and what are the resources that are needed, including the technology. So you start there, right? That's a good, you know, high level business analysis. And then it's really, it's, again, providing knowledge to those individuals that are going to make decisions or influence decisions, lead your projects. And then it's gaining access to the technology and skilled professionals to design and develop and deploy those technologies. But what I will say is two things, is that one is that industry now is requiring companies to do this. If you don't do it, you're putting your business at risk, right? We want to not only survive as businesses, but thrive. And two is that it provides exciting opportunities for your employees as well. And it's a great opportunity to retain employees and keep them invested in the future of your company.
Thank you, Jeff. Aldo Montenegro is asking if there is a specific framework for planning and executing data science projects.
It's a great question. There's a number of frameworks that are available today. There's no one prominent framework. So, and part of that is because that what you'll find about data is that data is many times specific not only to an industry, but specific to a business. So what you will see is that, you know, through consultation, et cetera, you will see frameworks that have and approaches be applied, but many times the data becomes proprietary to your needs. And so you'll have to help define that in a proprietary way.
Thank you, Jeff. We have 2 or 3 more questions. We have a little time, so I will abuse of you and keep asking some questions.
Of course.
Someone is asking if you can elaborate a little bit more about the data science practitioner credential. For instance, how long does the class take? What about the exam? How many questions? The duration? The passing criteria? Is it proctored?
Yes. So so the certified data science practitioner is if you remember, that was one of in our build layer. That program is typically 40 hours of instruction. So that includes both delivery by an instructor plus lab time. It prepares you for this certified data science practitioner exam. The exam is a proctored exam delivered through the Pearson VUE platform. It's 2 hours in duration, and I think it's 80 to 100 questions long. The goal is that as you go through the training and validate your skills, is that you can then become a data science engineer. You'd be able to, again, take data, do what we perform, what we call ETL, the ability to extract, transform, and load data, and then model data. So really become, I always call it the data interpreter, taking data from all these different data sources and then being able to bring it together so you can model it and use it for analysis.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Someone is asking if the EDB's credential is a prerequisite to get certified as a practitioner in the IoT, data science, and intelligence, artificial intelligence subjects.
Yes, so it is. And thank you for asking that question. I skipped over that when we were reviewing the slide. So to earn the ET-Biz credential, you can take the combined course of AI Biz, DS Biz, and IoT Biz, or you can take each course individually and then take the ET Biz assessment. So either path, but it is a compilation of AI Biz, DS Biz, and IoT Biz.
Okay, Omar, ¿tenemos tiempo de un par de preguntas más?
Sí, Jorge, adelante.
Okay, Juan Citaví is asking how the artificial intelligence will be impacting the project management practices. I mean, it will substitute some of the or all the decisions that the project manager makes at this point.
Yeah,
particularly in risk.
Yeah, I think it's going to help project managers. It will not replace project managers. Artificial intelligence is good at making, what I always say, decisions we can make with the snap of a finger. It's not good at higher cognitive reasoning. And that's what project managers do, right? Project managers essentially take a number of inputs, but the decision process is multi-layered, and artificial intelligence is just not as capable of that. Now, will you use artificial intelligence in potentially risk analysis? Yes. Will you use it in identifying dependencies? Yes. Will there be other ways that you use it in your project management practices? Definitively. But we expect the project management field will only grow, not diminish in any way with artificial intelligence. There'll be other jobs that if you were a data entry person, I would tell you to update your resume. But as a project manager, it's, again, I think it's only going to help the profession.
Okay. One more is Jose Arce is asking if you have some pieces of advice to optimize the understanding of the business data in the telecommunications, and what would you think it would be the future of this industry?
Yeah, I think the telecommunications industry is obviously becoming more important to us because as we become more ever connected, right? So we talked about that with IoT and the fourth industrial revolution, and our telecom industry is facilitating a lot of that infrastructure and the underlying technology. And our telecoms actually have a lot of data. They haven't probably done as good of a job as some other sectors in generating value from that data. But again, as I was talking about with Apple Health and the amount of data they're amassing, think about the amount of data that your telecom has about you, right? So even if they're not using your individual data, the data in aggregate becomes extremely valuable. So how do they better make use of that data as opposed to just letting it continue to build?
Okay, thank you. The last one.
Yep.
Is Python and R covered in the practitioner data science class?
Say that again.
Python and R.
Oh, yes.
Covered?
So in our certified data science practitioner and certified AI practitioner, those courses use Python we use Python in both of those. You don't have to be an expert Python programmer to take the courses. We actually provide code snippets and you execute them in the course. And then we do have other programs that are available through our extended partnership that can provide training on Python and R as well. So because Python and R, for those who aren't familiar, are two of the programming languages that are most often used in advanced data and analysis, data science, and artificial intelligence.